Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Friday, the 8th of August 2025, and these are the stories that we will be trying to understand, decipher, and comprehend during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with India's war hysteria. Nothing new there. We saw it after the Pahalgam false flag operation. In fact, the whole false flag operation was created in order to generate that war hysteria, as have been the previous false flag operations, and we can name so many like Chhattisgarh, like Odi, and so on and so forth. Anyways, this time also the war hysteria seems to be quite on the minds of the BJP government, because they are procuring more and more weaponry. And this has been stated by none other than their own newspapers, their own media outlets. What will be the outcome of it all? We've seen what happened in Operation Bunyano-Marsoos and how India's so-called superiority in the region was made evident by Pakistan in just a couple of hours. We will highlight that, and we will also be highlighting how the Narendra Modi government is also promoting or propagating the Hindutva ideology within or under the ambit of military reforms, and how that is also changing the whole mindset of the Indian military. This will be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Israel and its plan to take over Gaza. Nothing new there. This is what was apparent on the 7th of October 2023 as well, and on the different statements that had emanated since then, and now this has been made official by Netanyahu, because in the cabinet this is what has been approved by the Israeli cabinet. There have been various reactions by the international bodies and countries, from the UK to other important partners and the United Nations as well. But the whole question is, will Israel be left to its own devices, and will it be able to annex the occupied West Bank and take over Gaza as it has always planned, or will there be some kind of stoppage at some moment in time before this actually happens? This is what we will discuss in our second story. Our third story concerns the GLOFs and the global floods, glacial floods rather, that have raged through the valley of Hunza and have created a lot of damage to property. And the fact is that GLOFs is a phenomenon that is nothing new as far as Pakistan is concerned. Due to climate change, we are seeing more and more of that, and under these monsoon rains that are still impacting Pakistan, GLOFs are happening and could happen in the days to come as well. The warnings have been given, but the important thing is how the different authorities, people and organizations need to heed to these warnings as well, and what needs to be done is what we will be discussing in our third story. And our fourth story concerns Cambodia, that has nominated Donald Trump for a Nobel Prize. Yes, because of course we all know that Cambodia and Thailand were engaged in a war that was going to deteriorate, but due to Donald Trump's intervention, this war was stopped. And of course, thankfully, both the sides, Thailand and Cambodia, accept the fact that it was Donald Trump who intervened, unlike India, that said that it was the US had no role whatsoever as far as the ceasefire is concerned. Finally, the US doubled its bounty on Venezuelan President Maduro to an amount of $50 million. Maduro is amongst the most wanted by the US government. Whether he will actually be arrested at some time and some place is another question, but of course this bounty has been raised now, doubled in fact. This is the lineup for today. Let's play our first segment, and that concerns India, its war mongering, its war hysteria that has always been evident, but with every new passing day or week or month we get to see new chapters regarding that war hysteria. We've been joined by Major General Zahid Mehmood, who is a defense analyst in the studios, and we have also been joined by Waqar, Sherazi, who is a senior analyst in the studio as well. Thank you very much to the both of you to have joined us. We'll begin straight away from you, General Saab. General Saab, when you look at this war hysteria, we all knew that they were about to buy Rafales as well. They were about to buy military equipment from the US, which they have now stalled because of the 50% tariff that the US has imposed on India. This recent 670 billion Indian rupees arms shopping spree, what does this reflect in your point of view as far as Modi's war hysteria and destabilizing ambitions in South Asia is concerned?
Thank you very much, Omar, for the invite, and it is always a pleasure being at your show. Let there be no doubt that this is the complete comprehensive application of the Hindutva, and the Khand Bharat is on. With this mindset, now we are foreseeing that the friction has taken the lead policy of Bharat, which used to be Bharat. I'm not talking about the India, because India used to be At least they used to claim that they are a secular country and secularism is there, but now it's a complete Hindutva application with their military designs and use of proxies, military designs being the lead instrument of pursuing those radical ideologies which they are pursuing, and unfortunately they have already converted their military to the militant wing of the RSS, and it's purely Bharat now we are confronting. Rather, this whole region and international community will have to confront this new Bharat with the radical ideological thoughts converted through achieving their political objectives, their ideological objectives, their supranationalist objectives through use of military friction, escalation, and we'll be seeing increase in this approach. And that hubris mind, which is nowadays, by the way, primarily it is confused, and I mean shamefully they are running post to pillar to salvage their lost glorious past of ghus ke marenge, those war cries, and we will do this. They were portraying that as if they are the biggest power on
but
this
this is something that sells within India. This is something that sells within their followers, and this is something that garners them votes in the elections.
Yes, it is because it is the domestic politics is always important for them. If we are talking about the military now, the 70% of their military consists of the Hindus,
Yes.
So it's the same average. So same average is found in other, demographic appearances in India. So they've clearly given this strategic direction that India, Bharat is for the Hindus only. They are the one who will drive this Bharat, and if some minority has to live, they have to live as subservient to this majority, and that majoritarian rule is already implemented, and
that's so unfortunate for a country that used to be pluralistic at one time.
It's unfortunate. I'm sorry to add, it's not only unfortunate for the country, it's unfortunate for the whole region, because they have designs and they're furthering those designs. We can talk later about it.
Of course, definitely. This massive investment, Waqar, in this lethal weaponry from India, do you feel that India is again, because I was talking a little bit earlier in another show, and one of my guests said that India is a wounded fox. So, and they said that India might try to initiate some other missile just before the Bihar elections in order to gain some kind of, favor with the Indian voters before these elections actually takes place. Do you feel there's another misadventure in play, the way India is buying all this weaponry against Pakistan?
There has been a constant shift that we have been observing in India, that they claim to be the largest democracy on the world, but it has now been turning towards majoritarian rule or majoritarian government by within the country. Not only that they have radicalized their military, but this radicalization has started from masses. We have seen the events of lack of tolerance amongst the masses on even urine of a cow, that if it is not accepted by a religious minority, the people were killed on that, even on that count. It means that whole of the society has been radicalized. On the other hand, the Jain community in India has been constantly asking that in the Indian census they should not be included within the Hindu title because they have a different and separate religious identity. But they have been forcefully included in the Hindu title just to show the largest coefficient of the Hindu population in that the greater Bharat. So we see that it has been turning towards a theocratic government rather than be a democracy in whole the country, but we'll have to observe that this race for weapon, 3.5 billion people live in this region of the world. And it means that 3.5 billion lives or 1 billion families. It is not just a figure. So the world will have to understand that India is not only changing its own theocratic doctrine or political doctrine within India, but it is threatening the countries on their borders. and it is a direct threat to humanity, to 3.5 billion lives in the region.
I agree. General Saab, do you feel this procurement of so many weapons not only is an excuse for destabilizing further the region and Pakistan as well, but also to divert attention of people from what is happening in the Indian held valley, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
Of course, it is evident from the way they were trying to create that smoke screen of terrorism and relating this indigenous freedom movement with terrorism. So I think they are very openly applying whatever they want to apply. All the bills which we have recently seen, especially once you are talking about the valley, those are against the Muslims. Those certificates of living which they are giving to them, the domicile bill is, that is evident. They have brought in 3.5 million, non-Muslims, non-Kashmiris into Kashmir, and they are of siblings or families of those government officials who have served for more than 10 years in Kashmir, and then Sainiks are being, old soldiers, ex-soldiers are being brought in, and then the Pandits. So it's mix of military and religious monks they are bringing into valley to change the demography of Kashmir, and I call it as a demographic coup.
Yes.
Once they have failed to implement their policies, once they have failed to subdue this legitimate movement of Kashmir through military, through use of force, through weapons, intimidation, coercion, they have adopted this policy of demographic coup, and that is happening so rapidly. So they will at the end of the day you're going to find that those Muslims will be converted into minority. Same model which has been done in Gaza and in Middle East. So the way
of course the fact is also, General Saab, that you speak of Gaza. When you look at Israel, Netanyahu has openly admitted to Indian journalists recently that he provided weaponry to India in the recent escalation with Pakistan. So I mean, there is a direct or indirect involvement and influence of Israel as far as India is concerned, and its military tactics is also concerned.
This even Pahalgam, this has been originated, and this has been pushed on India to go with Pahalgam by the Israelis. Let there be no doubt. Whenever there is a application of proxy, there is a pattern to that.
True.
Initially, you use the proxies that they were doing in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and at the end of the proxy, you use the conventional forces to draw the last blood. But this happened in the middle of that application against Pakistan. What was happening in Balochistan and what was happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. I'm referring to that. So bringing this conventional forces, the use of conventional forces mid-course of a proxy, that is purely Israeli ideas. And then people were present, they used their drones, let there be no doubt. There is a huge connection between the Hindu Zionism and the Jewish Zionism, and this application is, we can very conveniently call it a unison application.
Agreed. Waqar, I'd like to also understand, not only is India weaponry that is significant of billions and millions of rupees, 670 billions, I'd like to repeat and reiterate that, but also I'd like to understand this dedicated drone battalions that also India is now making, as far as using this new drone technology and using these specified drone battalions against, of course, the first thing that comes to our mind is Pakistan and other countries in the region that they want to destabilize. Don't you feel that the international community needs to hold India accountable before it resorts to another such kind of misadventure?
First of all, we have to understand what sort of war mania they are having right at the moment. As I said, that the military has been militarized in a way that they have been radicalized. It means that theological or ideological soul has been given to the military rather than being professional. Whenever this comes to any of the military of the world, then they start relying on non-state actor for their deep state concept and rest of the things. And as General Sahab mentioned, that the examples of non-state actors we are observing in Balochistan and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the only objective is to create destabilization. It means that the thin line between the national defense and the political doctrine has been faded out in India, and now the political doctrine is driving the overall concept of a military to defend, to have national defense. This war mania has not only created insurgency in Balochistan, but in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well. And they are trying to create instability not only in Pakistan but in rest of the countries like Bangladesh, and I can name many of other countries. So on one hand, we observe that India is the country in the region who has the minimum proportionate of toilets for the people within the country in the region. On the other hand, they are focusing to buy more and more weapons. This shows their radicalism, the militarized radicalism, and moving towards a theocratic state, a deep state, which focuses more on the military options just to create instability in the region, rather than focusing on the well-being of their own population.
All right.
So on this account, the international community will have to have a serious look on the matters of this region, because I have already mentioned that this is a region of 3.5 billion people, and for the humanity, for the sake of the global peace, we have been observing that previously their misadventure was handled by none other than Mr. Trump, and more than 24 times he has mentioned that I was the one.
More than 30 times.
Yes.
More than 30 times. It's no
So,
longer more than 24
with
times.
this denial, I think that international powers will have to understand that India is not paying attention to any of the serious voices in the world because of their war mania.
All right, all right. Now, you're speaking of war mania and the way the Indian army mindset is being changed. A new book comes out called Resurgent India's Military by the Indian Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, which exposes the true nature of Indian military thinking. It says that the Modi government is pushing the Indian armed forces into political subservience, killing their professional neutrality. You know, not only are they changing the mindset of the people in India, or muting all those voices, or subjugating all those voices that are trying to rise to the occasion, or say some kind of sanity in this whole situation, but also now this is something that is emerging within the army, and that is said in a book that is written by none other than the Indian Chief of Defence Staff. Is Modi turning the Indian military, you being a military person, I'd like to understand that, is Modi turning the Indian military into an RSS militia under the guise of military reforms?
Look, I think Modi is not only trying to convert this to a militant wing of the RSS, they have already done it. Look, please let's make no mistake in calling this a book. This is not a roadmap to military thought or something, or an intellectual discourse. It is a clear-cut strategic direction of the military, because it is coming from the sitting, serving CDS of of India. So it is a strategic direction given by the CDS to their armed forces, and this is a doctrine which they are addressing. Though they are talking about the structures and rethinking about the organization and modernization plans, but basing on what? The most important thing you have already alluded is the military thinking. That military thinking they are driving from the old Hanuman thinking and the radical thinking which they have been using. So they are going back to the roots of their military application of the Hindutva, to the root from which they originated. So those militants, those military application which they have done in the past, now they are bringing them those into the modern thinking, and basing on this ideology and thinking, they are modernizing and restructuring their army. It means that Pakistan and the countries around India will have to, fighting their military is no problem. With the technology, it is no problem. They can raise 100 more drone battalions. That is not a big issue for Pakistan and and other regional countries. But the biggest challenge is to fight this mindset, the Hindutva mindset. How to counter that? For that, we will have to adopt a very serious. We will have to adopt a serious approach to fight this. And for that, we need to establish and create a very strong Pakistan and a very strong military.
All
That
right.
is the
but
that is the
we
fundamental.
mashallah also have a very strong military.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But once I talk about the strong Pakistan, then I'm talking about Pakistan in all domains.
All right,
A
all right.
strong, hard state, which in the past
right.
we have been hearing about that.
Waqar, Sherazi, I'd also like to understand something as far as this whole concept of changing the mindset of the Indian public. We've seen that the Indian army also, now we are seeing this, this declaration, this open declaration of Islamophobic military doctrine.
Yeah.
What kind of impact is it going to have within the people, within the society, within the country, and within the region as well? Already we see a lot of examples of Islamophobia emanating from the West. Now will we be seeing that also emanating within the Indian army?
This is very unfortunate. I think that this is for the first time in the recent history that any of the statesmen has said this, that a particular religion or their resistance towards the human rights has been termed as terrorism. So, Omar, Khalid Sahab, we understand that more than the Pakistan's population, Muslim people are living in India. So, on one hand, it is not only affecting their religious emotions, but it is a threatening call for all of the Muslim community around the globe, that someone being representative of a state, though a state like India, I would not refer to a proper term of a state, because they are not behaving like a state. So they are referring an ideology of resilience against the crimes, a resilience against the injustice as terrorism. It means it's a threatening call for overall Muslim community of the world, that someone is saying it's a blasphemous approach towards any religion. So I think that within India, Muslims are already suffering. They have lost the ownership of India being their own country, because the way the minority has been treated within India, their house have been burned, we have seen. Previously, we were observing that in the decade of 80s and 90s, few of the Indian officers were resigning on account of being posted in Kashmir, because they were not ready to commit crime against humanity. But this approach is even now declining. It means that a radicalism has been inculcated and nurtured not only within the society, but it has now reflected its impression in the military as well. And it is a very dangerous situation.
And it's a very unfortunate situation, not only for India but also for the region. And if this continues in the same vein, it not only will draw parallel to what Israel is doing, but will also lead to unforeseen situations. I hope that will be controllable by other countries in the region as well, because this is not just an India-Pakistan thing, it is an India-Bangladesh, India-Nepal, India-Sri Lanka, and the list goes on. Unfortunate as it might be, but this is how the Indian mindset is changing. Let's come to our next story, and that, ladies and concerns, Palestine, the Middle East. The fact of the matter is that the Israeli cabinet has accepted the I shouldn't say request, but this demand by Netanyahu to take over Gaza. To add to that is also the whole annexation of the occupied West Bank that was approved by the Israeli Knesset. There is a lot of opposition by the world and important countries across the world to this, but will that lead to some kind of a thaw as far as this major measure is concerned? More in the following report.
At a hospital in Khan Yunis, a before and after image that speaks to the hunger crisis gripping Gaza. 12-year-old Huda Abu Anaja says she is always weak and sleeping, and that her bones have begun to show.
I need proteins. I need meat, fish, and eggs. When the border crossings closed, this stopped coming to us.
A global hunger monitor has said a famine scenario is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. That's after Israel cut off all supplies to the enclave from the start of March. In May, it created the U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, to distribute aid, though that organization has been criticized by the United Nations, humanitarian organizations, and foreign governments. In a hospital in Gaza City, Amira Muteir cradles her 5-month-old baby. She says Omar sometimes spends 15 to 20 days a month without milk. He survives on a fortified solution provided by the hospital, she says, and when that runs out, all he has to consume is polluted water.
Omar has toxic and severe malnutrition. The shadow of death is threatening him because of hunger.
Israel has previously denied there is a hunger crisis in Gaza and blames the militant group Hamas for the suffering there. It says it is taking steps for more aid to reach Gazans, including pausing fighting for parts of the day in some areas, allowing airdrops, and announcing protected routes for aid convoys. However, the United Nations says airdrops are insufficient, and that many Palestinians have been shot by Israeli forces near GHF sites. The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office has said food consumption across Gaza has declined to its lowest level since the onset of the war. Nearly 90% of households have resorted to, quote, extremely severe coping mechanisms to feed themselves, OCHA said in a statement, including taking significant risks to obtain food and scavenging from garbage. Gaza health authorities say close to 200 Palestinians have died of starvation since the war began 22 months ago, and that nearly half of them were children. In a tent in Gaza City, Ibrahim al-Najjar says he lost his 5-year-old son Naim to malnutrition. That was a year ago. The former taxi driver is still grieving, while trying to save his other sons from the same fate. He points to his 10-year-old son, Farah.
This child is following him. For about a month he's been falling unconscious. This child used to be double the size he is now.
Each morning, Ibrahim's older son, Adnan, navigates Gaza's mountains of rubble in search of a soup kitchen, but his mother, Najwa, says her children crave a piece of tomato, or to eat bread like other people, adding that she would beg for a grain of salt. For those who do not believe, she says, come see the children of Gaza. We are not living. We are dying slowly.
Now, we've seen this report, and that highlights the famine and the dire situation that the people, the women, the children are, suffering from and witnessing with every passing day. The number of casualties that has crossed 61,000, and the number of children who are dying due to malnutrition, due to lack of food and proper facilities. And WHO that also says that around 12,000 children are about to move to the famine stage if they are not given the milk, the food necessary for their survival. I mean, this is a war crime, this is a genocide to say the least, and this is an extreme form of that, and this is being perpetrated by a race that itself calls itself a victim post the Second World War. General Saab, I'd like to understand, with over 61,000 Palestinians killed, famine that is unfolding slowly and steadily that we are seeing in front of our eyes, is Israel's takeover of Gaza as a military operation or as an act of collective punishment against an entire population, something that they had designed not since now but since many, many years?
Yes, I think this is a clear-cut genocidal approach, and this is not a war, this is a genocide, and unfortunately there is a tacit approval to Israel whatever they are doing over there, but I think this is going to prolong the conflict, and as we were talking about their taking over of Gaza, and they've already weaponized everything. Their politics is weaponized, they have weaponized the food, what to talk of the human rights and all. So I think that they've established those traps, killing traps. You're bringing people to collect the food, and then you're droning them, or you're attacking them, whatsoever. But I think with this approach, I'm foreseeing a long drawn war. This escalation will continue, and again this will give this will give more chance to those non-state actors, you can say, although people have their own view about, I'm talking about the Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis, and with the passage of time you will find that more such groups will also emerge, because you can't inflict pain to the people of Palestine for such a long period. Now you're inflicting pain to the entire region, and remember, as of now the Israeli approach has been they have been following their enemy wherever they have found their enemy, in Lebanon, in Syria, then they went to Iran. So their approach was directional. Wherever the enemy was found, they were going that way. But after this taking over of Gaza, what is going to happen? I foresee that again the application of the greater Israel, and now their direction will be towards the valley and maybe towards Jordan and all that. So why I am saying this, because now the Arab world should understand what is happening. Even today, if they are not understanding what is the approach like, what they are going to do, they will be suffering, not maybe today, but tomorrow or day after, So this is moving towards let there be no doubt that this is application of the greater Israel, and the whole Arab world will, they will be in the fire. That's why I say that the joint strategy must take place. Now we must put end to this genocidal approach. This is actually protecting the other countries of this region. So one must understand, and this synergy will have to be created for a collective, comprehensive response to Israel in all domains, political, diplomatic, and maybe in the military later on. Otherwise, these non-state actors, maybe they will have a complete justification of fighting, because if you're killing them, you're finding them to kill them, they will come out and then they will fight you, and then they might choose to be killed.
Unfortunate as it might be. Waqar, Sherazi, I'd like to understand, is Netanyahu laying the ground for the permanent occupation of Gaza?
Omar, Khalid, but it is very unfortunate that we are living in an era where all this is happening around us.
True.
And we are just silently observing that. It was very clear from the day first that, and there was a similarity between the false flag operation in Pahalgam and the false flag operation in, let me say it, the false flag operation within Israel, which was taken as an advantage to intervene in Gaza. And on the same account, our enemy tried to have a misadventure, and it was finally proved to be a misadventure for them. But when we see within the Gaza all this happening on the license of Western powers, it is very clear that without the illegitimate authority provided by the Western powers, Israel or the Zionists would not have dared to have massacre within the Gaza. So far we have been observing that the figure of 61,000 people has been issued, but the actual figure can be 4 to 5 times higher than that, because within Gaza there is no existing government that can issue even the numbers. There is no health ministry, no health authority existing at the moment within Gaza. Now on the humanitarian account, with the name of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, they are again calling the people on a trap of providing them food, and then they are killing the people without any weapons. They are just common people looking for food. I think that this sort of inhumanity and this kind of injustice has never been seen earlier on the globe.
All right.
And with this, it was very clear from the day first that this is one of the agendas of Greater Israel, as my colleague said, that they have intervened in Syria, and they have taken many of the Golan Heights and the aprons of Golan Heights within the Syrian area. And now they have officially announced that they will be taking over the Gaza, which was their plan from many decades. So I think that we were previously having no confusion. Even the international community was very clear that this genocide is focused on taking the land of Gaza on the price of precious lives of innocent people of Gaza.
That is true, but you talk about the international reaction to it all, but the fact is, General Saab, if I come to you, the international reaction has been changing in the last few months. We saw France, we saw many other countries, Canada, that said that they are going to formally accept the state of Palestine in September in the United Nations session. Now, when this whole episode of taking over Gaza is announced by Netanyahu, there is strong reaction of the United Kingdom, there is strong reaction of the United Nations, from Turkey, from other important Australia, countries that have been siding with Israel. Will that, is this showing an international shift as far as Israeli policy is concerned? B, will it have any impact?
I think we'll have to wait and see how practically how it is, how I mean if they're not happy and they want to alter this situation. So practically what they are doing, they're already, you know, as I always said that there is a little tacit approval, but probably this approval was not for the genocide and all that. And then things are happening so quickly that you know, in the entire world, every country today we see, especially the Europeans, you know, they have their own issues and a lot of geopolitics and geoeconomic issues. So they're already entangled in that. But again, which forum they will use to, you know, come out with some response, you know, until the time the United States with the, you know, this veto power with them. So United Nations, I am not foreseeing any effective response coming from there. As far as the OIC is concerned, we all know we should not talk much about it. But I think that's why I always say the important countries are Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Egypt, countries like this, you know, especially Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Middle Eastern countries. So they can play their role. At least they will have to come out to provide some kind of a, you know, a pivot where the other Western countries, they can, you know, they all can rally around, and then they might come out with some strategy. You know, as Sherazi Sahab was saying, that if this world has not moved after 61,000 and much more killings, what else is left there, you know, once they will come
and
out?
The starvation, that the you know, the deliberate attempt to, you know, kill people, if not by the a bullet, then by lack of food.
Lack of food. This is the thinking. That's why you must have heard Netanyahu's brother Modi saying, you you eat your bread or my bullet is there, you know. So that this is the thinking over there. But again, I would say that there is a sport. We must, I mean, we appreciate that sport. And but that has to be converted into the practical manifestation, has to be practical in nature, you know. So that will be point where there will be a bit of understanding. Yes, they are serious in this approach, but again, that fundamental sport and the leadership from Arab world, they will have to lead this prong. Otherwise, we will continue seeing this suffering, and unfortunately, we won't be able to do much what all is happening.
General Sahab, that is so unfortunate. But let's hope that the world rallies around Palestine, and of course A, with the acceptance of Palestine in September, and B, with the different important countries in the West also calling Israel on its occupation of Gaza. Maybe this is the time something might happen. Maybe this is the time some ceasefire might happen. Maybe this is also the time a two-state solution might be implemented in Latin principle. You can remain optimistic, even if it's a cautious optimism. One should remain optimistic. Please stay with us, General Sahab. We are about to end the show, but very quick question and answer session with Waqar. We end the show. Our third segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns climate change and glacial outburst floods, or GLOF. Now this is a phenomenon that Pakistan has been witness to in the last few years and continues to be witness to even this year. A GLOF from Shishpur Glacier has swelled the Hassanabad Nalla in Hunza, damaging infrastructure and putting dozens of mountainside homes at risk in GB. We have discussed with Waqar Sherazi in the past as well, as far as the whole phenomenon of GLOF is concerned, climate change, Pakistan's impact and its sensitivity to climate change, despite the fact that it is not a carbon emitter, is concerned. Waqar, let's come very quickly to it. These repeated GLOF events from the Shishpur Glacier causing destruction in Hunza, what in your point of view is Pakistan doing or should do to develop a comprehensive early warning and evacuation system for GLOFs?
But it was very clear that Pakistan's northern India is called as the third pole because it has been having more than 13,000 glaciers. And as a resultant of global warming, these glaciers are melting around the globe, not only in Pakistan. So we have been observing in previous few months that the glacial outbursts are more rapid now. And the unfortunate phenomena with glacial outburst flood is that it gives you no time. It means that you will have to have a strong monitoring system, not only the early warning system, but a localized monitoring system that it can be brought in with a very simple solutions like the CCTV monitoring or the camera monitoring of the glaciers, that how the glaciers are behaving over past few weeks or past few days. And then you'll have to have an early warning system, but that early warning system should be embedded with the emergency kits provisions, the training provisions to local people, the localized capacity of disaster response and disaster management, and that too should be coupled with the evacuation system, the localized evacuation capacity and evacuation system within that area. We all understand that those are very hostile, geographically or topographically very hostile areas with rugged mountains and fast rivers and glacial lake outburst and landslidings. So these kind of facilities are quite difficult to be provided over there, but there is no short-term solution or there is no easy solution to that. We'll have to have an internal capacity of the people, an internal capacity of the local government, and a local warning system as well.
All right. Given the damage that has occurred to the Karakoram highway and the farmland, what measures also should be taken in order to strengthen the infrastructure in GB and climate-induced disasters as well?
The climate change is now happening around the globe, and the climate resilient infrastructure and climate resilient agriculture are no longer are unfamiliar terms for the world. And we'll also have to adopt these terms, not in kind of just terms and talking them, but we'll have to have an built-in climate resilient infrastructure.
All right.
We understand that the Karakoram highway is the only connection, we are having an only ground connection between our neighboring country China and Pakistan, and which is crucial for us for trade and rest of the things. And coincidentally, it passes through a very hostile weather areas which have a very high risk of glacial lake outbursts and flash floods. So to prevent this highway, we'll have to have a reconstruction that is capable of having a greater disaster resilience and a resilience towards flood shocks, resilience towards the shocks because of any of the possible earthquakes.
All right. Let's hope, that we manage to avert any disaster from GLOFs or any climate-induced event or eventuality. That is a possibility and could be a possibility in the coming days as well. And the example in Hunza is just one of the so many examples that Pakistan has faced and continues to face since the last couple of years. Thank you very much, Waqar, Sherazi, to have joined us. Kindly stay with us for 2 more minutes. Last 2 stories, ladies and gentlemen. The first concerns Cambodia, that nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, Cambodia has joined Pakistan in nominating Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, crediting the US president with the truce between Cambodia and Thailand. Now, we all know that 5 days of hostilities between the two countries killed at least 43 people last month as a territorial dispute boiled over into cross-border combat. But of course, telephone calls from Donald Trump ensued, and that is what led to a truce between Cambodia and Thailand, and that is for that very reason that a letter from Cambodian Prime Minister on Thursday addressed to the Norwegian Nobel Committee said he wished to nominate Trump in recognition of his historic contribution in advancing world peace. Last story concerns the US that has doubled its bounty on Venezuelan President Maduro to $50 million. Nicolas Maduro faces several drug trafficking charges in the US, and this is a move that Caracas describes as pathetic and ridiculous. Now, the previous bounty had been set at $25 million in January, but now that has been doubled. Venezuelan Foreign Minister says that this bounty was the most ridiculous smokescreen that they had ever seen, quote unquote. Investigators say that Maduro is part of a cartel, this is what the US says, that has been working hand in hand with the rebel revolutionary armed forces of Colombia, which the US has labeled a terrorist organization. So this also is a new move that comes in from the US as far as the Venezuelan president is concerned. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. This is Friday, so I wish you a great weekend, a safe weekend. Of course, with the rains, please take the necessary precautions wherever you are, especially if you are in the northern areas. And we'll see you inshallah on Monday with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.